My name is Isabella Reed, and I am 30 years old. A lawyer,
A wife.
a mother. Those are the titles I've earned. They are the shields I've built around myself, the proof that I have shaped my life into something far greater than anyone ever expected. But before you can understand who I am today, you need to know where I came from. And to know that, we must go back to a time when I was nothing more than an unwanted child, dismissed before I even had the chance to prove myself worthy. I was born into the Reed family. Edward Reed and Catherine Reed were my parents, and 3 years after me came my younger brother, Nathan. From the moment he entered the world, everything shifted. My parents had always wanted a son, someone to carry on the family name, someone who could inherit the business empire they had been carefully building. When Nathan arrived, their dream had been fulfilled. And me? I became irrelevant. I can still remember the way their eyes lit up when they looked at him. Their golden boy, their future. The way relatives would pat Edward on the back, saying, "You finally have your heir." I remember standing in the background, my small hands clutching the edge of my dress, waiting for someone to notice me. But they never did. It wasn't that they hated me. Hatred requires energy, attention, passion. No, what they had for me was worse. Indifference. I was 6 years old when my world ended. At least, that's how it felt. I remember holding my mother's hand tightly as we walked into a tall, gray building with peeling paint. I didn't understand what it was at the time, only that the halls smelled faintly of disinfectant and something sour, like old milk. Children's voices echoed in the distance, some laughing, some crying. "This is for the best," my mother whispered, though her hand trembled in mine. I looked up at her face, searching for answers. "Why, Mama? Where are we?" She didn't meet my eyes. We walked into an office where a woman in a navy blue sweater greeted us with a tired smile. She knelt down to my level and spoke softly, her words syrupy sweet, the way adults talk to children when they're about to do something cruel. "You'll be safe here, Isabella. Lots of friends to play with. It's a good place." I didn't understand. My stomach twisted. My father wasn't there. He had stayed home, I later realized, because he didn't even have the courage to face me. When my mother finally let go of my hand, I panicked. I clung to her skirt, crying, begging her not to leave me. "Mama, I'll be good, I promise. Please don't go." She pried my hands off her dress one by one, her lips trembling as though she might cry herself. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered words that would haunt me forever. "You'll understand one day. This is for the best." Then she walked away. I screamed until my throat burned, until my small voice was hoarse, but she didn't turn back. The sound of her footsteps echoed down the hall, fading into nothing, until finally, there was only silence. And that was the day I stopped being a daughter. The orphanage wasn't hell, but it wasn't home either. It was a place of survival. The walls were bare, the beds creaked with every movement, and the food was bland and scarce. The caretakers did their best, but they were overwhelmed, stretched thin by the sheer number of children left behind by parents who had decided they were burdens. I quickly learned that if I wanted anything, a blanket that wasn't threadbare, a second helping of food, even just a toy to play with, I had to fight for it. Not with fists, but with wit, with speed, with determination. That's where I first learned resilience. Every night, I clutched a small, fraying blanket against my chest, pretending it was my mother's arms. I told myself stories in the dark, stories where she would come back for me, where she would walk through the orphanage doors and say it had all been a mistake. But she never came. Neither of them did. In school, something shifted. I discovered books. They were my escape, my salvation. I devoured every page I could get my hands on. Math, history, literature, it didn't matter. Knowledge became my armor, my proof that I was worth something. Teachers noticed. "Isabella, you're gifted," they said. "If you keep this up, you could earn scholarships." And that became my mission. If my parents had thrown me away like I was worthless, then I would prove them wrong. I would climb higher, achieve more, and show the world that I was not the failure they had decided I was. One memory stands out from when I was 12. I had just won a regional essay competition, and the orphanage director proudly displayed the certificate on the office wall. That night, I stared at it for hours. Not because of pride, but because for the first time in years, I felt something strange. Hope. Maybe I couldn't change the fact that my parents abandoned me. Maybe I would never understand why. But I could decide what happened next. And I decided that night that I would never let anyone make me feel disposable again. I would build a life so solid, so successful, that even if they never knew it, even if they never saw it, I would know. I would know I had risen above. Years later, I would become the woman sitting across from the very people who had once decided I wasn't worth keeping. But that moment was still far away. For now, I was still just a girl in an orphanage, with nothing but determination in my chest and a dream in my heart. I didn't know it then, but the ghosts of my past would follow me forever. And one day, I would face them again. By the time I turned 13, the orphanage was no longer just a place where I lived. It was a battlefield I had learned to survive in. Children came and went, some adopted, some running away, others simply aging out. I wasn't one of the lucky ones. Nobody ever came for me. At first, it broke me a little more each year. Every time a car pulled into the orphanage courtyard, my heart leapt in my chest. I thought, maybe they've come back. Maybe Mama changed her mind. Maybe Dad finally realized I matter. But the cars never came for me. Instead, I learned to stop waiting, to stop hoping. That was the year I stopped being a child. School became my lifeline. It was the only place where I wasn't the abandoned girl. There, I was Isabella Reed, the one who always had her homework done, the one who raised her hand first, the one teachers praised for her essays and her arguments in debate club. It wasn't just that I was good at school. I needed to be. It was my ticket out. I told myself every single day, if I work hard enough, I'll never have to depend on anyone again. Not my parents. Not the system. No one. And I worked. I worked harder than anyone else around me. While other kids played after school, I stayed in the library until the lights dimmed. While they worried about crushes and dances, I worried about scholarships and grades. I didn't have anyone at home to remind me to study. I didn't have a parent helping me with homework. What I had was a relentless drive born from pain. At 15, I was awarded a scholarship to attend a summer program for gifted students. It was the proudest moment of my life, yet also one of the loneliest. Other kids had parents in the audience, cheering, clapping, taking photos. I stood on the stage with my certificate, smiling, while the empty seat reserved for family in the front row stayed untouched. It hurt. It always hurt. But that night, back in my dorm, I stared at the certificate and whispered to myself. But that night, back in my dorm, I stared at the certificate and whispered to myself, "This is only the beginning, Isabella. One day, you won't need anyone to clap for you. You'll clap for yourself." When I was 17, my guidance counselor asked me the question that would define my future. "What do you want to study, Isabella?" I didn't even hesitate. Law. The word tasted powerful. Law meant control. It meant justice. It meant never being powerless again. My counselor gave me a long look, then nodded. "You'd make a good lawyer. You don't back down easily. But it won't be easy. You'll need scholarships, grants, a lot of them." I just smiled. "Then I'll get them." And I did. College was a revelation. For the first time, I wasn't the orphan. I was just Isabella Reed, the ambitious young woman who spoke up in lectures, who outworked everyone else, who carried herself with quiet confidence that most people my age didn't have. Of course, it wasn't easy. I worked part-time jobs to cover living expenses, waitressing, tutoring, even scrubbing floors at the campus library. There were nights I fell asleep on my textbooks, my hands cramping from both work and study. But every sacrifice felt worth it. Every grade I earned, every scholarship I secured, was proof that I was building a life with my own two hands. It was during my second year of law school that I met him, Daniel Hayes. He was nothing like the polished, arrogant law students who strutted around campus as though the world already belonged to them. He was kind, grounded, funny in a quiet way that snuck up on you. We met in the library, both of us reaching for the same book. I pulled it first and he grinned. Guess I'll have to fight you for it, he said lightly. Without missing a beat, I raised an eyebrow. You'd lose. He laughed, and that was the beginning. At first, I kept my distance. I didn't trust easily. But Daniel was patient. He showed up with coffee during late-night study sessions. He walked me home when my shifts ended at midnight. He never pushed, never demanded. He just stayed. Slowly, he became my anchor. Even as Daniel became more important in my life, I carried my past like a hidden scar. I didn't tell him about the orphanage at first. I didn't tell him about the parents who had thrown me away. How do you tell someone that? How do you explain that you were so unwanted? Your family chose life without you. But Daniel had a way of looking at me that made me feel safe. One night, after we had been together almost a year, I finally told him everything. He didn't flinch. He didn't pity me. He simply took my hand and said, "They made the biggest mistake of their lives, Isabella. But you're extraordinary. And I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in my life, I believed someone when they said they wouldn't leave. Graduating law school was more than an achievement. It was a victory over every voice that had ever told me I wasn't enough. When I stood in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, I didn't think about the parents who weren't there. I thought about the little girl clutching a blanket in the orphanage, praying her mother would come back. I whispered to her, "We made it." Daniel and I married a year after graduation. Our wedding was small, intimate, filled with laughter and love, the kind of love I had once thought was impossible for me. 2 years later, we welcomed our daughter, Sophie. The first time I held her, I cried. She was so tiny, so perfect, her little fingers curling around mine. And I made a vow in that moment. She would never, ever feel what I had felt. She would never wonder if she was enough. She would always know she was loved. Sophie became my world. But the past never stays buried. For a while, life was beautiful. I had a husband who loved me, a daughter who filled my days with joy, and a career I was proud of. But the past has a way of creeping back into your life when you least expect it. One evening, while researching a new case at work, I came across a familiar name. Reed Enterprises. My family's company. The empire they had chosen over me. And for the first time in decades, I felt the old wound rip open again. The name on the file burned into my eyes. Reed Enterprises. My family's company. The empire my parents had chosen instead of me. For a long moment, I just stared at it, my chest tightening. I had buried the past. I had built a new life, a stronger life. Yet here it was, clawing its way back, demanding to be faced. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. My firm's senior partner called me in. "Isabella, this case is delicate. Reed Enterprises is collapsing. Years of mismanagement, debt, bad deals. If anyone can untangle this, it's you." I nodded, keeping my face calm. Inside, I was a storm. Me? Representing them? The same people who once decided I was disposable? It felt like the universe was giving me a choice. To walk away or to face them. And I knew I couldn't walk away. The meeting was scheduled in a glass-walled boardroom downtown. When I walked in, the air shifted. At the head of the table sat Edward Reed, my father. His once proud shoulders looked heavy now, weighed down by age and failure. His hair was silver, but his eyes still sharp. Beside him, Nathan, my brother, the golden boy. Polished suit, smug expression, though I caught a flicker of unease when his eyes met mine. Their faces froze. Shock. Recognition. Guilt. My father's lips parted, his voice trembling slightly. "Isabella?" I set my files on the table, my tone steady, professional. "Yes. Isabella Reed. I'll be handling your case." For a few seconds, no one spoke. Board members shifted uncomfortably, whispering to each other. Finally, Nathan broke the silence with a scoff. "This is absurd. She can't represent us. I cut him off, my voice low, but razor sharp. "The girl you left behind? The daughter you decided wasn't worth keeping?" The room went still. Nathan's jaw tightened. My father's face paled. After the meeting, my father asked to speak privately. We stood in his office, the door closed, silence pressing between us. He finally spoke, his voice heavy. Isabella, you must understand. We thought we were doing what was best. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Best? You left your 6-year-old daughter in an orphanage like she was trash. Do you have any idea what that does to a child? To grow up thinking she wasn't enough. His eyes dropped to the floor. For once, Edward Reed had no answers. Nathan barged in, his voice sharp. This is ridiculous. She thinks she's better than us because she clawed her way into a law degree? This company is ours, Isabella. Always has been. You're nothing but an outsider. I turned, fire burning through me.
No, Nathan.
I'm the one person in this room who earned her place. I built myself from the ground up. While you... I gestured at him, my voice cutting, were handed everything and still managed to fail. His face flushed with rage, but he had no comeback. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't powerless anymore. For years, I had dreamed of standing in front of them, proving my worth. And here I was, not as their daughter begging for love, but as the lawyer whose hands held their company's future. The roles had reversed. They needed me now. But deep inside, I asked myself a question I wasn't ready to answer. Would saving them bring me peace? Or was this my chance to finally let them fall? The boardroom was quiet. Too quiet. Papers lay scattered on the polished table. The air felt heavy, suffocating. I sat across from them, my father, Edward Reed, and my brother, Nathan. The two men who had defined my life without ever being present in it. The men who had made me who I was, not because of their love, but because of their absence. And now they needed me. The truth comes out. Isabella, my father began, his voice low, almost pleading. The company is in ruins. Debts, lawsuits, investors pulling out. If we lose Reed Enterprises, everything we've built. I leaned back in my chair, studying him. Everything you built. Not me. I wasn't part of this empire. Remember? You made sure of that. His eyes closed briefly, as though my words were knives. I thought, he faltered, then started again. We thought giving you up would give you a better life. Catherine, your mother, she couldn't handle 2 children. She insisted. I slammed my hand on the table, my voice rising. Stop lying to me. Don't you dare twist this into something noble.
You abandoned me.
You left me crying in that orphanage, praying every night you'd come back. But you didn't. You never did. Tears blurred my vision, but I forced my voice to stay steady. You chose him. I pointed at Nathan. The golden boy cracks. Nathan shot up from his seat, his face red with anger. Don't you dare put this on me. I didn't ask for any of this. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up with the weight of this family on my shoulders? I was never enough for him either. I blinked, stunned. For the first time, I saw something raw in Nathan, something real. He clenched his fists. You think I was loved? You think I had it easy?
No.
I was groomed to be the perfect heir. Every mistake, every failure, I paid for it. And look at me now. The company's falling apart under my watch. I'm not the golden boy. I'm a failure. His voice cracked on the last word, and for the first time in my life, I saw my brother not as my rival, but as another victim of Edward's expectations. Edward's silence. I turned to my father. You hear that? You destroyed both your children. One by abandonment, the other by suffocating him under impossible expectations. Edward's face had gone pale, his eyes glistening. For once, the great Edward Reed had no control, no authority, only silence. The offer. The senior partner of my firm cleared his throat. Isabella, time is running out. Reed Enterprises won't survive without immediate restructuring. You have the legal expertise. It's your call. Take them on as clients or walk away. Every eye in the room turned to me. My father, my brother, the board, waiting for my decision.
The choice.
I closed my eyes. Images flashed before me. The orphanage walls, the lonely nights, the certificate I had once stared at, whispering to myself that I would rise above. And then Daniel's smile. Sophie's tiny hand wrapped around my finger. The family I had built myself. I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to destroy them to feel whole. I already was whole. When I opened my eyes, my voice was calm, steady. I will represent Reed Enterprises. Not because you deserve it, but because I do. Because I will never be the broken little girl you abandoned. I am stronger than you imagined. And I will prove it, not for you, but for me. The aftermath. The weeks that followed were brutal. I tore through contracts, renegotiated debts, restructured failing divisions. Reed Enterprises slowly crawled back from the edge. But every meeting, every late-night negotiation was also a confrontation. With my father's guilt, with my brother's bitterness, with my own pain. Slowly, the walls between us cracked. Nathan began to soften, asking me questions, sometimes even listening. Edward grew quieter, humbled in a way I never thought possible. One evening, after a long day, my father approached me. His voice shook. Isabella, I cannot undo the past. I cannot ask for forgiveness I don't deserve. But I am proud of you, more than you'll ever know. Tears filled my eyes, but I only nodded. I wasn't ready to forgive. Maybe I never would be, but I didn't need to. A new beginning. When the case finally closed and Reed Enterprises was saved, I walked out of that building not as their daughter, not as their savior, but as myself. Isabella Reed. Lawyer. Wife. Mother. I had faced my past, and I had won. As I stepped into the evening air, Daniel was waiting for me with Sophie in his arms. My daughter reached out, giggling, her small arms wrapping around my neck when I lifted her. And in that moment I knew I had broken the cycle. I had given Sophie the love I never had. And that was enough. The past no longer owned me. I owned it.